Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We are recording this meeting just to allow us to then package it up and put it available for members to see afterwards. So thanks for joining us for this Munch and Learn, first in quite a while actually. And we will come on to discuss the topic in a minute. A little bit of the agenda, which I now don't see you to do. This is in the Eventbrite, so we'll just go about the improving the innovation funding ecosystem report, sort of why we did it and how we went about getting member insight, then the aims of packaging it and publicizing it, what we've done since we publicized it, and then we would like to get your insight on next steps. So as usual, what we do at the start is just if people could introduce themselves. So my name is Liam Henderson, I'm the chair of the Rail Innovation Group and I am based in London. Sitting opposite me is...
Hi, I'm Deb Carson. I am also part of the Rail Innovation Group. I never remember what my actual title is, and also High Speed Rail Group.
It's Head of Initiative.
Oh, I'm Head of Initiatives.
Mike.
Hello, I'm Mike Lloyd. I'm Managing Director of Junction. We're a rail digital solutions provider. Very interested in today's agenda because we've been there and dealt with quite a lot of these issues. So I think it's a really good initiative. So looking forward to it. Great.
Amy?
Hi there, I'm Amy. I'm from a communications and marketing company, but we deal an awful lot with rail innovation companies. Basically.
Cool. I've got Kate.
Hi. Hopefully you can hear me. Good afternoon. Yeah. Kate Loch from One Big Circle. I'm an accounts manager there. So yeah, looking forward to learning a bit more about the report and experiences.
Cool. We've got Ed.
Afternoon. My name's Ed Bilson. I'm from Infinitive Group Limited. We do kind of stuff at the intersection of data and railway engineering, but we're primarily a railway engineering company. My colleague Martin Halligan was also hoping to attend, but has been delayed, so he sends his apologies.
Okay. Props. I don't know what's happening there. Then we've got Russell.
Sorry, was that me? Sorry.
Yes.
You know, Sab I work for London South Bank University, currently part of the Sustainable Innovation team, looking at providing innovation training to new businesses within London. Been part of the Rail Innovation Group for a while, so I was keen to come back.
Cool, thank you. And then we've got Russell. Russell. Well, if Russell can join. And then we've got Nick. If you want to introduce yourself. I'm guessing you might be, well, I think actually also connecting to audio still. So, okay, let's move. Oh, no, we've got someone in the chat saying, might not connect. Okay, Russell says hello. You can't connect. Right, so let us move on to about the report, from which I get to go on to mute and hand over to Deb.
Thank you. Okay, so it's just what we wanted to do initially on this call is just set out, because obviously not everyone has been involved in kind of developing this. We've spoken to lots of you, but not by any means all of the Rail Innovation Group family. So essentially, it's probably worth saying that we decided that this would be a good project for us to look at, because we just hear often from members, just in general sort of informal discussions as well as more formal settings, that it appears that the funding ecosystem for innovation into rail isn't quite as smooth and efficient, can we say, as we might hope. So that was, I suppose, the background for us thinking perhaps we should do something kind of unpick that a little bit. So we decided to that we're probably, our starting point was to kind of get a few key questions together that we could ask people that have experience of you know, applying for government funding, receiving government funding or not, and how that's been. And we did actually so we kind of put together a set of questions that we thought might cover the things that, and draw out the things that we wanted to find out more about. And then we did actually, rather than just going off like a bull in a china shop, we did actually test the questions with a couple of colleagues informally at Innovate UK, because obviously the purpose of this wasn't to kind of poke or point fingers at you know, industry funders, government, etc. really, although, you know, it might seem like that's what we're trying to, that's what we're doing, but actually what we wanted to do was kind of pull out something that was positive, but that was kind of firmly grounded in people's actual experience, and kind of, you know, play it back to government and funders to say that, you know, this isn't working in every instance, and can we helpfully put forward some suggestions about how either the process or the, you know, the experience can be improved. So it was, you know, it was on that basis really that we wanted to kind of put forward something positive, even though everyone's experiences, I have to say, seemed overtly negative from the people that we spoke to. So we, as our report said, we wanted to start a discussion essentially with industry and government on, you know, how to make funding better and improve the funding ecosystem. So we sort of had a bit of toing and froing on the questions that we might want to ask, and we sort of came up with a set of questions and then put them out to the Rail Innovation Group wider members to say, you know, this is what we're wanting to achieve. If anyone feels inclined to help, then please answer these questions. We had a good response. We had a whole series of kind of responses. Some were really detailed, some were, you know, just kind of fairly quick and dirty questions. But all of that was extremely sort of interesting, and actually took a while to, you know, to kind of digest from our end and think about how we could kind of usefully pull it into a report which, as I said at the beginning, wasn't kind of overtly negative, but actually was picking up on some of the really clear messages that were coming from the people that were kind of speaking to us, you guys, our members. So we ended up with the report as is, really. We kind of made it quite short because, as we all know, nobody seems to read anything that isn't terribly short at the moment. So we wanted it to be quite direct, quite short, and something that perhaps might lead on to, you know, a more detailed piece of work in the future. So that's, and hopefully you'll have all seen the report, which Liam has just shared the front cover. We had it beautifully designed, and actually decided that this would be part of our future ongoing series, which is kind of small asks, you know, from us, which I thought sort of fitted really with the ethos of us and what we're trying to achieve with all sorts of projects that we work on. So we actually had some reports printed, which is always nice to have something actually in a hard copy, I think. And we decided, we obviously press released the report into the, you know, relevant kind of places that you would expect. But we also sent in with a covering letter, hard copies of the report, actually into the DFT, into a couple of the program directors at the Rail Transformation Programme at DFT. We also sent in to kind of a couple of ministers, Department for Science, Innovation and Technology, into BAYS, and then on to some of the Transport Select Committee people that we thought would be relevant. So we did we thought that would be a good way of actually trying to make sure that this went under the noses of the right people. That's only happened in the last couple of weeks, and as things stand, we haven't had any kind of responses, positive or otherwise, from anyone in terms of the letter and the hard copy of the report. which, I mean, let's be honest, it's not unexpected, but it, you know, we might end up having some responses trickling back from that. So that's a quick sort of canter through how, you know, we kind of came up with this and how we've ended up with the report that we've got. I mean, we've had some really actually quite heartening responses from not just members but others, you know, in the industry, to say it's a really good starting point. It's a very succinct way of actually saying, look, here are people that are actually at the coalface of applying for this kind of funding, giving us, you know, really, really helpful feedback on how this process could be made better. So that's where we are. And I think, you know, it's quite good that we're having this Munch and Learn now, because we're just coming up to, I think, the next round of first of a kind. So I guess what Liam and I, and I'm going to pass back to Liam in a minute, but what Liam and I are sort of hoping that we can have a bit of a discussion about today is, one, whether anyone's had any engagement with you know, their own kind of networks on this report. Have you been able to share it with anyone? And then kind of move on to a wider discussion about what we think the next steps might be, if any, to sort of push for some change in this area. Liam, you might want to carry on and say something else about that.
I'm still on mute, so there's going, but I think we should probably cover off is what we said for next steps. They're just cover off why you put them as the next steps.
Sorry, Liam, you're on mute a bit.
So I was just trying to, I was asking Jen if she could just cover off why we said these are the next steps and how we thought they would be the useful way of doing call to action.
Oh, sorry, I'm not on mute now. That's good. Well, yeah, I mean, as the report, as you can hopefully see, Liam shared, we did this as a call to action, and we wanted to, you know, look at a number of things which we've put into the last page of the report, which, as you can see, is to consider whether the current assessment methodology supports, you know, responsive innovation. We want to look at whether there might be a way to sort of engage with industry more widely, with other partners, to reassess how public money is allocated. We want to look at how we can help through this report improve, you know, speed of, you know, from market to wider adoption. There are a number of sort of things that we think that our group could kind of look at, but I suppose hopefully what we can discuss today is, you know, in those kind of 6 points which we pulled together for this, you know, what our members think about that, whether we think that we could or should prioritise any of those, if there's anything that we've not thought of which we perhaps should include in this. So yeah, just an opportunity really to engage with you, to see where you think we should kind of look to kind of push this forward.
Can I make some suggestions? Because having bid for Innovate UK, first of a kind RSSB, and delivered those projects, I just want to try and put forward the perspective on whether any of the outputs from that were actually part of the rail plan at all. So the key issue for me was that there was no formal plan to adopt anything that came out of first of a kind, whether funded by Innovate UK and RSSB. It was just treated as a tick box sideshow, essentially. So I would support being slightly more, should we say, it might be better to rock the boat a bit more, because I feel government is obsessed with commercial operating model at the expense of looking at what's really available through innovations to actually improve operations and the customer experience. Those are the two biggest things. They actually couldn't care about the customer. They are a cash cow. And the operating model is all about the history of the industry and the regulation and the private operating structure. And they're just obsessed with that to such an extent that the innovation bit doesn't really come in. So I apologise for saying that.
No, apologise.
Deb's on mute, but she said don't apologise. That was a lot of the conversations we had when doing the research. So obviously we have somewhat tempered the language we used, but it was, yeah, the feedback we got was obviously more direct. I think you'd agree. Yes. So I guess for anyone else on the call, we can come on to that, but Mike, do you have any insight, or I'm going to assume that everyone has read the report in detail because they were so keen to read it, and therefore do they not have any anything they want to share at the start in terms of their feedback?
If I could dive in, first of all, can I just ask? The report mentions interim consult. Is that report? I'm just trying to check because we have a board director who runs a company called Interim Consult, and I think that might be his report. Was this a report from Paul Corcoran at Interim Consult? Do you know? It mentions Interim Consult in the paper.
Yeah, I think we just referenced something from Interim Consult, which is something that one of the members shared with us, and we wanted to reference it.
Okay, because I spoke to Paul about it, and he said he didn't know that it was being mentioned, and he's quite active in this area. He's actually on the board of Rail Support Group, Rail Supply Group, rather. So I would suggest, if it is from him, that one of you should contact him. I can give you the details. But probably get a good idea to loop him in if he's being mentioned in the report, and he's very pro innovation and rail and so on. So that was just an observation. I mean, we've won a number of grants and awards over the last few years, and we have been successful in taking a couple of projects into production, albeit very, very difficult. I mean, my observation is that you know, there's a lot wider issues here, and one of them is obviously, has already been mentioned, the way that the industry is structured and funded, but there's also obviously the working practices. But it seems to me, in the discussions I've had with various people, including Kelvin Davis at Innovate, is that the problem is, I think there's quite a good ecosystem already around accelerators for rail innovation. You know, there is quite a lot of funding available. You know, it is rigorous to pitch for them, but on the other hand, you know, I can see why that would be. It's public money that's being spent. Where the whole thing falls down is the next stage, which is the route to market. And there is no funding in place to take projects through trials, through extended trials, or you know, for any initial funding to take these projects into use. And you know, one or two people have been very successful. One Big Circle probably more than anybody else. So it'd be good to get their view on it. But the issue is that unless you have a great deal of commercial expertise, some fairly deep pockets, it's very difficult to do contracts. My feeling is it's a structural problem, and that it needs to be addressed at the top of the DFT and the industry if there's any change to be made. And my thoughts, for what it's worth, is that what's needed is some sort of additional fund to go through the next phase from having built the proof of concept and the MVP to, as I say, trialing and getting into contract. We also need different types of contracts. I mean, we've been involved in 6-7 month contract negotiations. You know, there needs to be better digital contracts. You know, there's a lot of change that's needed, but it won't happen unless it's driven from a sort of fairly high level. So, you know, I would have thought we need to be looking at trying to engage. I mean, I think it's fantastic the Rail Innovation Group is doing this, and I think you're absolutely the right vehicle for that. And for those of us that have been successful in getting through this at this stage, you know, maybe we can get more involved in supporting this. But I think, you know, we need to be getting the Andrew Hayneses and the people right at the top involved with this. And they need to see that this will lead to them hitting the goals that the industry's currently got of increased productivity, increased customer service. that this is actually going to save money and, you know, improve service, improve revenues. So we've got to link that up somehow, make the business case more clearly. And I'm not sure the paper makes a business case. So I think we need to be looking at, maybe between those of us, say, who've had some success in this area, how can we build a business case to persuade the DFT, Network Rail, whoever, that this needs to be funded, there needs to be a separate fund set up, there needs to be a team to manage it, because it's not in the infrastructure at the moment. So that was a bit of a rant as well, but it's something I think a lot about. So
no, thanks, Mike. It's really useful, and I think we all, you know, all of your comments are, you know, absolutely spot on. Really, one of the things that we talked about was that whether a next step could potentially be that we try and get some kind of a round table type, you know, event organised where we did get some senior, you know, you mentioned Andrew Haynes, others, you know, just to, because to talk about how we can make the business case, you know, what needs to be in that business case.
I think we'd need to do some work before that. I think if you're going to go and sit in front of people like that and get that meeting, or get the meeting with the senior people at the DFT or head of Innovate UK, you know, we need to have put together, you know, we need to have done the thinking beforehand so that we actually go along with something, you know, sound, rather than just asking for ideas.
Mike, on that note, I think we need to set out what the burning platform is in rail that requires the fixes we would provide through those innovative projects. And you could do a small benchmark exercise saying these are the key gaps in how rail operates. This is where the pull is, which is why you need those things. So I'm not sure it's about innovation. It's not about funding. It's about pull. It's about what are the things that really are needed to fix rail operation, and how innovation could fix those things. Maybe that could be built into the new transport bill somehow.
I think technically that's true, but at the end of the day, it is about funding, because the reason why a lot of these things don't go forward is that the TOCs have no funding for it. You know, there's no program to take it to the next stage. So while I agree, you know, these are the challenges that the industry's got, you know, that you've got to connect that up, and you've got to provide a business mechanism for making that happen. Without funding, nothing will happen. That's the problem.
Fully agree. And various Innovate UK projects, we've teamed with TOCs. They've gone into the franchise bids, and once they've won it, the things just disappear.
We've had the same.
Never happen, and it's not to do with funding. It's to do.
It is to do with funding, Nick. Honestly, it is. I mean, in my view, you know, we've had stuff in. You know, the franchises got suspended. We've been in committed obligations. They're written in there. There was no funding, because basically the DFT takes a red pencil out and says, we're not doing that, we're not doing that, we're not doing that. It's not in the plan. There's no funding. You know, the TOCs don't have the money to spend on it.
I think it's probably a bit of both, and I would suggest, well, you know, we're not going to be in a position to put a really detailed business plan together. But what we could consider doing, and it would be worth having a discussion more widely, you know, that others on this call that might have something to contribute. But you know, what we've done in the past when we've, you know, put out these kind of thought-provoking, you know, start of a conversation type reports, which is exactly what this is. And with a view to getting perhaps a roundtable event together with some more senior people to talk more seriously about this. And I would suggest that this kind of thing would go into some kind of a presentation, which we would have to put together, which would kickstart then a proper chaired discussion about what does need to happen at the top of DFT to kind of, you know, make sure that actually we have a more efficient you know, mechanism for getting innovation through into, you know, right into the commercial railway, essentially, rather than, as you both really, you know, clearly pointed out, getting something which is, you know, funded to a certain point, but not funded right into the market, sort of thing. You know, it is a structural problem. I completely agree with you, Mike and Nick. I don't know if others have got anything. Have we got any hands up?
I've literally got to jump. I just put a message in about the call, Deb, but I'm totally, we sort of agree, and Kate's going to stay on the call as well, but it's that gap between what we've found with some of the innovations we've done is because in the funding sense, they didn't know this innovation was coming. There's no allocation for it. And suddenly you've kind of got this fantastic opportunity to deploy, but you've got people who's, you know, the pots are tied up with what's been agreed in advance. So it's potentially looking at some sort of flexible innovation in procurement that enables these little pockets of ongoing delivery to happen, and then they can build and scale. But that definitely feels like where there's an impasse in some of the stuff we've done is like, here's this fantastic, you know, successful project, there's opportunity for it, but there's no immediate place for that to fit in the agreed funding that's already been established years in advance before this innovation took place. So it's trying to line up some of that. And as I say, maybe innovation in procurement is kind of where, you know, the innovation in technology is happening. It's where is there innovation in procurement and application of new capabilities as well.
Thank you, Emily. I agree. Anybody else? Liam's busy making little notes. I can see him. Anybody else want to say anything?
I mean, I would be prepared to, but I think this is such a critical issue for the industry. I mean, it's a pity Emily's had to drop off, because I mean, Emily's company has sort of been a massive success in this area in the way that they've grown over the last few years and managed to sort of almost defeat the odds, if you like. But I was thinking, you know, if a number of us who've you know, had the arrows in the back from doing it, you know, could put a bit of time in and put something together. This is a key issue, and unless, you know, someone's got to change this, and we're the ones that have probably got the most experience of it. And I think Rail Innovation Group provides a good umbrella for it to do it, you know, and you might, as a result of that, be able to get some time with some senior people. But you know, as I say, that I feel that we need to demonstrate to them that there is value in this. You know, at the moment, you know, let's be frank, most of the sort of innovation things are all about the rail companies producing some nice shiny things saying we're doing innovation, it looks good, it's good PR, but hardly any of it ever ends up being used because it's not built into the operational programs. So, you know, there's a structural problem there that has to be addressed, but it has to be linked into what their challenges are. If they can see that this is going to save them money, or it's going to improve customer services and increase revenues, they'll be very interested, because that's what they're focused on. We've got to connect that up somehow. And it needs to be connected at a senior level, you know, because at the end of the day, that's where all the decisions are being made.
Sorry, go on.
Sorry to come in again, but Thomas Abelman at TfL is probably a champion of this, given his role in innovation. Sorry, but he's obviously leading the charge at TfL. And it will be perhaps helpful to get him involved. So he's not frightened to say what he thinks in this area. It's not part of the TfL versus DFT issue. So actually, given his background in Chiltern, this will be very potentially a way forward of driving it. Sorry about the coffee.
I was just going to add on to, hi, Kate from One Big Circle. I know Emily's dropped off, but happy to take anything away. Just what Mike said, yeah, more than happy that we do something, because yeah, this is a problem. And I think with some of the things that, especially here at One Big Circle, it's completely been dependent on who you found within Network Rail, mostly by accident or by chance. And as long as they're a champion, but they also then need to be able to navigate sort of the procurement processes within there. And we've used some of the funding within the R&D of Network Rail, but it is such a challenge. You've then got to get a champion within the route. And the biggest problem, again, is having that capital investment, especially at the start. Like they say, if the budgets are all tied up for CP6 or whatever it is already, you're kind of stuck. And there's most of these innovations, there is going to be some sort of expenditure, especially at the start, even though it might, you know, reduce costs overall. You do have to do that, which may or may not be available. So having, like I think Emily briefly said, but some sort of pot maybe set aside that the routes and things like that can draw off. Yeah, they probably have to then sort of show that they have produced a saving as a result afterwards. But at the moment, you can't even get to that point because you're kind of stuck.
So it sounds like, from what I'm hearing, thanks Kate and others, that one of the things that we could perhaps look to do is, if we at the Rail Innovation Group took an action to try and talk to some senior people like Andrew Haynes about the possibility of them being open to some kind of a roundtable event where we could come together and discuss this at a higher level, and then perhaps we would be leaning on you guys and any others that might be in Rail Innovation Group that might want to participate and support that in putting together the detail that would sort of we would bring to that roundtable session potentially. Because I mean, you're the experts, you would be the ones that would be bringing your experiences and your suggestions in terms of whether it will be a couple of presentations or however we decide to go ahead with that. But perhaps that's something that we should look to explore. I mean, obviously that's going to be dependent on how open DFT are to having a session like this, but one would hope that they might. So yeah, that could be something that I'm looking to Liam. Is that something that we would be able to explore? Yeah.
Hi, I'm a bit late to today's session, so apologies for missing the beginning. I was actually on a call with TfL, ironically. So, and just I can only really talk from my own experience, and I'm a founder of a startup, and it's always the challenge of being a startup is trying to break into a market and trying to get anyone to take you seriously, because you've got no track record, you've got no existing position within that marketplace. But what my experience has sort of taught me is that it's really sort of by partnering with larger organizations and also having umbrella organizations coming under their auspices. So when we've done sort of trade shows, and we've done them with sort of working with Innovate UK and the Department for International Trade. I remember once the Department for International Trade have they do a few of them via a thing called Trade Fair, I think it's called, where they set up a sort of UK pavilion at an event, and they bring together organizations who will make a small contribution towards the cost of their particular pod within that pavilion. But it sort of brings everything together. It's under the UK flag, and it's sort of saying innovation is great. And I think that's something that, if you guys were to do that as the Rail Innovation group or community, then I think that would really help. And if there's more sort of stuff that underpins that as well, where you're providing sort of policy guidelines to the operators saying, it's all very well, how do you innovate and how can you, sort of build innovation into your programs, into your systems. How can you bake it in by allowing budgets, a certain flexible budget that can be used for innovations across any part of that operator. So rather than, because at the moment, if I was to go to, for example, Transport for Wales and say, listen, we were one of the winners of their accelerator, and said, well, look, if we'd like to deploy this for you, then it's going to cost a whole bunch of money. But they say, well, they don't have any money at the moment. Because there's nothing in the budgets for it. So, really what you need is some sort of, business strategy that allows innovation to be baked in and to pay for that innovation as well. I think I was at an event at your office, actually, Deb, where you had a chap in from GWR, was it, or something like that, or the one that's below GWR, Southwise, and he was talking about innovation in his rail network, and obviously post-COVID or because of COVID, you've got the Department for Transport that basically have to sign everything off, and he was saying that even they've got this innovation program and they come up with ideas and someone might come up with a fab solution, but then the DFT come along when it comes to actual budget sign off, and they'll say no. And the reason is that they don't want to spend any additional money. For them, it's just about, keeping the system together until they can pass it over to, a new set of hands that is going to, take it forward. Because I don't think
and that's the baked in problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's the kind of the nub of it, and that's what we need to kind of unpick. I mean, we should caveat from a Rail Innovation Group perspective. I mean, we're a tiny little not-for-profit organisation, so we don't have the funds to go and have big a presence at different
But maybe that's where we're not thinking big enough. So maybe, because if I was to go, I'm doing a show soon, and it's like, it's going to cost me, I don't know, a couple of grand or something like that for a tiny little thing. But if we collectively came together and created this, pavilion, and we all said, okay, well, if this is the opportunity, it's a Rail Innovation Show, whatever it is, the World Passenger Festival or something like that, and put it out to the community and say, listen, if we go and do this, it's two grand in for you to come in on this. We'll create a pavilion for all the sort of UK innovations to come together, and everyone. It'd probably work out cheaper for us as individuals to do that rather than to go it alone, and also we get the benefit of going in as a unified entity.
Yeah. Anne, you've got your hand up.
I'll shut up now.
Hi, I've been sort of listening in thus far. I work for Connected Places Catapult, which is very familiar to Mike from Junction, because we're allowing one of their solutions to be tested at Bristol Depot Meet. We, for those who are not familiar with us, are an accelerator / incubator / research center / think tank, formerly part of government but now independent, and we look at infrastructure, systems and placemaking. What we do a lot of is SME funding and linking that up with Network Rail and DFT. So yesterday I joined as one of the facilitators for a thing called TRIG, which is a Transport Research Innovation Grant. It's fully funded by DFT. And what we do on their behalf is select the kind of challenges that we're working on that year. One of which was how to improve the passenger experience in rail. That was a table I was facilitating yesterday. And what we've heard is that it's a really good opportunity for SMEs to get linked up with quite senior members of DFT, get the network that you need in order to come to that initial testing. There's a lot of focus in how we set up these events around networking between SMEs as well as with those key stakeholders within rail. Someone knocks on my door. I'll have to quickly pause my comment. I've got another one, but one sec.
While Anne has gone to answer the door, thanks, Chris, for your contribution. Sorry, we quickly went to Anne. Is there anyone else that wants to sort of say anything on this? If anyone wanted to kind of, explore the possibility of being part of this, what will essentially be a working group, I would imagine, with Mike, Mick, One Big Circle potentially, then either drop a note in the chat or drop an email to Liam afterwards. Anne, you're back. You had another point to make. That's okay.
Worst time for the postman to come by and give me a parcel. The main thing that I wanted to, that was just more of a side note, but do definitely keep an eye on our website, which is cp.catapult.org.uk, to keep things simple. Because there's a lot of work that we're doing around, like, how can we ensure that the rail innovates. We are sort of a gateway to a lot of small pots of funding, but mostly network. The main thing I wanted to say is that we are working on a big project with Network Rail on station innovation. And this is where Mike's company is part of the cycle, the first series of SMEs that we've sponsored to test in a live environment at Bristol Temple Meets. So we've got a thing called the Station Innovation Zone, where we want to reduce or improve the passenger experience of the station, and B, reduce the barriers to innovation in stations. When it comes to point B, I think that's where this discussion is highly relevant. We are currently funding the trials, which are live, but the big challenge for SMEs is what comes after. You've proven your value, but where do you then go within Network Rail to actually get a contract? So the whole discussion around procurement, etc., is something that we are highly interested in and trying to help reduce the barriers that people experience. So I think that what I'm saying is, would you be able to link us into that conversation, that roundtable idea that you've got, because we've got people on the project working particularly on understanding sort of the struggles of procurement and innovation in rail. Sorry, that was a long and disrupted monologue, but I just wanted to put that out there. Yeah, but given that,
no, thanks,
here.
and we definitely will keep you, keep you in the loop on where we go with this. Someone else had their hand up, Mike.
I just wanted to ask Anne, really, so it's very interesting to see what you had to say about that. How much you've discussed yourselves within the catapult of this challenge of going beyond the initial proof of concept. Is that something that you've had a lot of discussions around yourselves?
Yeah, it's a major discussion point. I work exclusively in rail. I've got a human-centered background, so I look on always into the passenger experience in rail. And across the different projects that I'm working on, this is with Network Rail, this is with HS2, it's always about what happens after you've done that initial trial. Trialing in itself, we found, isn't the most tricky thing. It is tricky in stations. We know that there are big hurdles to overcome because they're very dense places, but the real challenges come afterwards. So we have ongoing conversations about how can we support Network Rail in adopting innovations. I'm working on a project around Eastern region and how to do that from the ground up there. We've worked on projects with the R&D. So how do you channel R&D into business as usual? So a lot, aside from it being just a discussion that we have with people that work on rail, we have very particular projects focused on helping that change come about. It's a big challenge. Network Rail is a massive organization, and that makes practice-based change very difficult. So I think it's one of the drivers for why we do all of the work, given that we are sort of an innovation incubator place, and seeing that Network Rail needs to innovate and is struggling to do so, with procurement being one big problem in that.
Thanks, Anne. Yeah, no, agreed. And it is always, as I think Kate said, from One Big Circle, it's like a Network Rail, well, and the department to some extent, it's a great big entity that it's often really, it's a random success if you have any success with the right kind of engagement, which is not really that helpful, is it? Okay. Well, that was, I found that really useful, and I think we've got potentially a kind of a way forward, and lots of notes Liam's got. Liam, do you want to say anything else? Are we going to, I don't even know what the time is now, actually. That's gone quickly, that hour. Is there anything else we need to say? I'm going to pass over to you, Liam.
Okay, thanks, Deb, for that. Is there anything else to say? Not really. I hope you've all read the report. Feel free to share it, forward it. We have a bit of a social media campaign going on, so you'll see it pop up again and again with slightly different messaging. Feel free to share it on, or if anyone asks you about it, put them in touch with us. I don't think there's anything more that I can say about the report because I've now taken so many actions. I guess the only other thing is we have an event on the 28th of June in London. If you would like to join us, it's about human-centered rail. So, and you might want to come. I'll send out the Eventbrite link for that as well.
Already forward it to one of my colleagues who will be joining.
Cool, perfect. So otherwise, any last comments from anyone? Otherwise, we'll end it there. No, okay then. Cool. Thank you all for joining us, and see you again.
Thanks, everyone.
Very much.
Cheers. Thank you.
Bye.